Hi, you're welcome everybody. Welcome, Richard. I think you just joined the call now. Okay, so we are going to start our webinar. So just to remind you all, the webinar is being recorded, and for some ground rules, please to keep your mics muted. And if you want to speak and you have a question, you can always keep that in between the sessions. There's going to be a time for Q&A, and we are going to have time for like a broader discussion. But for now, we are going to have short panel discussions as we start. So if you have any question, please don't just unmute yourself. You could just put your question in the chat box, or you could raise your hands and I'll take note of that. You can ask your questions later, so that we just have a very civil and very interesting conversation this morning. Welcome, Tando. It's good to have you here. So I see all our regulars and familiar faces joining in quite slowly today, but it's really good to have everybody join the call so early. And before we start the webinar proper, I just want to say a very big welcome to everybody on behalf of Space Hubs Africa. So if you've never joined us before and this is your first time, so this is a dialogue session that I host with Space Hubs Africa, where we discuss general interesting topics surrounding the African space industry. Like I like to say, these topics are meant to be non-technical, they are meant to be very simple, very interesting, because the primary goal is to actually reach people that may not know so much about space, but they're trying to get involved in the space industry. And secondly, it's because we are trying to reach a wider audience, and we have very, very, very technical sessions. We might not be able to do so, but it's really great to see the traction that we've gained over the past few months, so much support, and I'm happy to host you all once again. So just a little bit about Space Hubs Africa for a background. If you've not heard of Space Hubs Africa before, or you're not familiar with our work. So we are a consultancy firm in the African space ecosystem. We like to talk about the African space ecosystem because we understand that the African space sector and industry is growing, but we need an ecosystem where firms and students and NGOs and government can connect a space where we can connect and learn from one another. That's why our mantra is like to learn, to connect, and to build. So if you are trying to get into this space industry, whether as an individual or as a company, our efforts are geared towards, providing a lot of like consultancy and information for firms, for students, coaching, mentoring. So that is what we do. We also provide policy strategies as well for like the government or for industries that just want to get into the African space market. And you can check our website. I'll send all the details in the course of this course. If you want to know more about the African Space Agency that is recently established and would start operationalization by next year, we've written a couple of interesting, simple articles that you can read to catch up on what is happening in the African space industry broadly. So that is what we are about. And for today's webinar, we are focusing on nonprofits and the African space industry. And it's quite an interesting topic because it's one of those things that we usually don't talk a lot about in the community. Why? Because the African space sector is burgeoning. So a lot of the dialogue is around new space, trying to get entrepreneurs involved and profit and capacity building for young people and space applications. It's a lot of like on the hardcore stuff, and we don't really think much about non-profit or outreaches. We only talk about outreaches in the context of outreaches run by maybe space agencies, and we thought like this is a very interesting topic because as the space sector itself grows, the corporate sector, space sector, or as an agency, the African Space Agency, to pursue the African Space Program, and as individual countries are getting involved in space, we have to also talk about CSOs, our civil societies can fit into this broader dialogue, because when we look at the space sectors of like maybe advanced economies will also see that a lot of CSOs are involved in, in outreach work, in getting young people and children involved as well at different levels. So we have a very dynamic and interesting panel today, and we are going to be talking about nonprofits. So we have Ernest Teye Matey, and we have Daniel Gashinbaki. Daniel, I'm really sorry, but maybe if I don't pronounce it correctly, you can do so when you want to speak. I have Daniel Obiokeke from the Space by Africa as well. So before we start, I think I'll prefer to just read out their profiles, and then we'll start the session proper. Second. So for our first speaker, Ernest is an integrated systems engineer and one of the trio who developed and launched Ghana's first satellites, GhanaSat-1, into space in 2017. He's the outreach manager of All Nations University Space System Technology Laboratory in Ghana. In 2013, his team won the Ghana Youth Excellence for demonstrating capacity for space technology. I think if you're familiar with the industry, you know that Ghana is one of those countries that have been able to build their own satellite indigenously, which is really tremendous. And we're very glad to have Ernest on the call today, as he was part of that team. In 2021, he was profiled by CNN as one of African voices of change makers for introducing innovative facilities for education, which has reached more than 15,000 students in Ghana. Currently, he is the coordinator of the African Space Station Project, which is an online facility with the vision to reach 1 million students in Africa with basic space education and opportunities. As of November 2024, this month, the project has benefited hundreds of high school students in 16 countries and working to reach all 54 countries in Africa. Seriously rooting for you, Daniel, that this does reach 54 countries in Africa. This is incredible. And for the second person on the panel today, we have Daniel Obiokeke, and he is a tech enthusiast. He's an ardent Wikipedia community lead and contributor with over 300 articles. He's excited about open source, blockchain, and astronomy. So Daniel is the founder of Space by Africa, and he also works as one of the IT head in one of Nigeria's few mooring companies. Daniel will probably tell us more about that. And for Spacebar is an observatory project making astronomy and telescope accessible in Africa, starting from Nigeria. They've been doing incredible work, and I would say you should follow them on Twitter. That is kind of like their own space. They're really big on Twitter, so you should follow them on Twitter. And currently in the community stage, Spacebar hosts stargazing events, rabbit holes, and other space-themed events. And Spacebar is one of the most recent NICOMSAT accelerator program. Okay, yeah, it's a part of the NICOMSAT accelerator program. And last but not least at all, we have Ilia-Daniel from the African Space Foundation. So he is the founder of the African Space Foundation, and he's a dedicated advocate for space science education, particularly among youths across Africa. With over 9 years of experience in technical and outreach initiatives, he has championed the integration of space science and technology into educational curricula. He has also engaged with government officials, including members of the Nigerian National Assembly, to push for increased investment in space research. And his work with the Nigerian Space Agency and other organizations definitely shows his commitment to advancing Africa's role in space science and technology through educational outreach and regional collaboration. Thank you so much, Daniel. I think the African Space Foundation has been doing incredible work, and I would say to follow them on LinkedIn as well, because you see most of their works on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really glad to host you today. So we'll just start with Ernest. If you can go ahead with your presentation. I'm going to stop mine now. Okay, just a second. Great.
All right, so good morning from Ghana, and thank you very much for the introduction. And personally, I believe that the Space Hub is doing a very great job, and we are happy to join in what you are doing. And so we are looking at space activities that has to do with non-profits. And yes, what we do is has the non-profit orientation, and we have a little to share on that. And so I've already been introduced, and so I do not think that I have to go through the introduction again, but basically I am presenting on the ticket of All Nations University Space Systems Technology Laboratory. I would like to present on our current program, education program that we have in Africa, which is making great impact, and how the non-profit inclination to it has helped and also has developed some challenges. And so the All Nations University Space Systems Technology Laboratory is currently hosting a project called the African Space Station Project. And so that's the name of the project, but I would like to let you know why the name. If you look at the slide on the right side of the slide, you can see the International Space Station, which was achieved by a collaborative effort. And so the name African Space Station was just a mimic of that. So this international and this is African. And then you can look at the logo, it's just in quotes, stolen from it. So that's why we have the logo, the African map, and then the wings of the ISS. The purpose for the project is collaboration. For us to be able to achieve a single space project through the collaborative efforts of African students. Let me say that the scope of the African Space Station project is limited to students. And for that, we are looking at students of ages between 14 and 21. And the purpose for the project is to reach 1 million students in Africa with basic space education and opportunities. 1 million. And so since this project began exactly a year ago, that's what we've been pursuing on a daily basis. It's an online facility which teaches students about space science. Now, the purpose is to reach students in the villages and in the remote areas. The reason being that most of the startups, the space startups or the national organizations, they are in the cities. And if they should conduct an outreach, a space education outreach, to save costs and also to make the work easier, they resort to the schools in the city, the schools around them. And so we realized that there's a huge depravity of the students in the remote areas and in the villages. And so the African Space Station project is to reach all with basic space education for all. And it's a well-structured system. I'm going to show it to you. Yes, of course, within the 10 minutes. And the resource can be accessed on 2 platforms. First of all, we have Google. On Google, when you search for African Space Station project, it pops up. You'll be looking for our logo over there. And on YouTube also, it pops up. You'll be looking for our logo over there. But let me show you why we resorted to going online. We have been running this nonprofit space education program since 2012. And since 2012, we've reached a number of students, for which reason the CNN came to profile what we do. Now, the picture that you see on your screen is just a day's event, just a day. And we are able to have about 700 to 500 to 700 students visiting our premises for a day's event, where we have to teach them everything space. Over time, we realized it was a very tedious process for us because there was a very great appetite in Ghana here for the students who come. And so in our approach, our customers sell what we have. And so there is no time we've had students come and they were not so excited. They're always complaining that they've been given limited time. And so when they go back, they talk to their colleagues about the facilities that we have. And so they always want to come. And so we have a very busy center that teaches students about space science. One of the main things that we introduced that brought a very exponential growth to the participations that we have is the virtual reality, where we give them the opportunity to simulate the ISS. They feel like they're in the ISS, a space mission. And so it was a breakthrough for us. And yes, it's non-profit. And so that is why you have a huge number of students attending. Because it's non-profit, you don't charge much. You just charge to maintain the facility, not for profit, but to maintain the facility. And I must say that because of the non-profit inclination, that is why a lot of people go in for our activities. Now, the African Space Station project has increased space activities in currently 18 different countries, and not schools in the cities. And that's the best thing that we want to have, not the schools in the cities, because those ones already have facilities, they already have exposure, and they are likely to be chosen for any outreach program, right? And so the best part for us is that we are reaching the schools in the remote areas, and they are studying about space science and satellite technology. I would like to show you, I would like to show you our platform, how our platform looks like. First of all, I'll begin from the website. We have a well-structured website which the students go to, and it's fully automated for their study. It's free to access, and it's just free. It's just free to access. So on your screen is the website, and it just gives you an introduction and how to get started with the program. Then, when you scroll down, this is how the program is conducted. The program has a 10-week session, like you see on your screen. And so when the school joins, we encourage them to have a club. And so when they join, they must dedicate 10 weeks for the program. And so for week 1, you see that you have a practical work and you have an assignment where you are supposed to submit an assignment. In this practical work are tutorial videos. So when you click the link, it takes you to a page where you have tutorial videos, and after you watch that tutorial video, you have some practical work, which after that you submit an assignment. And so that is how it runs. And if you want to look at the number of students we currently have on this program, the last time I checked, we were heading to 2,000 students. And so you can view the students here. We have view all participants. there are those who participate online and those who come to our premises to participate. And so when you view here, you can see those who participate online. And so to end, let me show you our YouTube channel where we've had a number of schools using it for the activities. Okay, so this is our YouTube channel. When you search on YouTube, the Space Systems Project, the African Space Station Project. Now, let me show you one powerful thing that we are doing here. We are currently translating the content of our class to 10 different languages used here in Africa. And why would we do that? It's because of requests. People who heard of the project and joined the project, some of them are bilingual, so they do English, but they request that we translate everything to French and that they are going to contact their colleagues in other French-speaking languages to join. And so I would like to emphasize on this, that the number of people that we've had on board is basically due to recommendations. So those who came recommend the project to others because they find it very educative. And so when you scroll through the YouTube page, you see English, French, Portuguese, Arabic, Swahili, Igbo language. So Helen, your people are featured here. Igbo language, we are currently doing the translations. We have Afrikaans, Hausa, and Spanish. And so that's about the African Space Station project, currently running in schools in 18 different countries. And it's our vision that by 2026, we should be able to reach all the 54 African countries. And I must say that we are open to partnerships and help to reach other countries. On the website, you'll see the countries that are currently on it. Some countries are quite challenging to reach, but then we are still working on it. So that's what I have for my presentation. And that is what the All Nations University is currently doing in Africa. And I'm open to questions during the panel discussion. Thank you very much. And over to you, Helen.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. I'm speechless because I've known about the African Space Station project for a while, but I never knew it was this big. And just looking at the outreach, looking at the numbers for the outreach. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Hi, everybody. If you could just help mute yourselves, please. Thank you. So thank you so much for sharing those insights with us, Ernest. And it's just incredible. I have so many questions, but maybe during the dialogue session, the panel, the question and answer session, we can have some questions from the audience as well. So thank you for sharing that information with us, and the work you guys have been is just incredible and just rooting for that. So I'm glad that you're still on the call. So we'll come back for some more discussion. And if we can have Daniel from the African Space Foundation, if you want to also share with us the work you're doing as well. Thank you so much. Yes, I can see your screen. Maybe we will zoom it out a bit.
Okay, is it better now?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
All right, okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. Okay, thank you for the wonderful introduction earlier. So I guess I'll start off. My name is Ilia-Daniel Gashinbaki, and I am the founder and currently the executive director of the Africa Space Foundation. Today, I'm just going to be talking about a bit of the work that we've done and the impact we've had over the past few years. All right. So I'll just start with a quick overview. So the Africa Space Foundation were a not-for-profit and non-partisan organization established in 2018 to enhance space-related capabilities and capacities, as well as foster space education across Africa. The Africa Space Foundation is the successor to the earlier Nigerian Space Ambassador Scheme. So in the aftermath of that program, about 2 of us came together and we decided that we needed a non-profit operating in a variety of African countries to promote space science and tech particularly among kids. Okay. So this ties both into our mission and vision as well. The foundation's mission is advancing the development of space science and exploration, as well as strengthening collaboration and effective partnerships across the African continent. What we want to do is that we want a world where African countries and different communities across the continent are working together to promote space science and technology. And the vision of the foundation is to pioneer that dream and pioneer this fully realized world where Africa is not just a spectator on the global stage, but we are an actor and we are a major player that contributes to what the future of the global space industry is going to look like. Right. So here we now get into some of the impacts that the foundation does have. Now, I can split this into two main areas. The first would be technical outreach programs, and the second has to do with our space clubs. So the foundation conducts a variety of technical outreach programs and events across the continent. Some are on-site, while some are mainly online. So when you look at outreach programs, we're talking about large-scale sessions at schools. It has to do with large World Space Week events, and it also has to do with outreach and certain programs that we hold in certain underdeveloped communities. So we go to these communities and we teach the people there how space can be used to solve some of the problems that they face on a daily basis. All right. Now, in the second area, it now has to do with space clubs. So, as part of the ASF's overarching vision, right, what we sought to do this year and the past few years as well has been to establish space clubs in a variety of not just secondary but also primary schools across the continent. So, these serve as sort of learning centers to um, increase student engagement with the African space sector. So, like I said, the foundation, we are the successor to the Nigerian Space Ambassador Scheme. The idea of the program was to catch kids while they were young. So, the idea was to expose kids to space infrastructure, space science and tech, and try to get them involved and engaged in the respective space sectors and industries of their country. So, it was implemented in Nigeria, and the foundation seeks to sort of do what the NSA scheme never could. We want to go much further than that. So I just have a few pictures from some of the events we conducted. So this was from a World Space Week event we had last year, right? So this was held at the Obasanjo Space Center. So we had about 15 to 20 schools in attendance. So the students engaged in a variety of debates. They got to listen to a variety of presentations, right? And they got to interact with quite a few interesting figures in the Nigerian space sector. So at the end of it, we had a competition for the students, and they also won a variety of awards based off how well they performed throughout the entire event. So these are just some pictures from that event. Then moving on, these are also some of the pictures we have from our space clubs. Um, the idea of the space clubs that we established is that we want to ensure that students are exposed to space science and tech in the long term. So the foundation, we've had a few deliberations and meetings, and we realized that outreach programs work to a certain extent, right? But if there is no follow-up, if there's no continuous engagement, students either lose interest, right? Or in certain cases, when they don't have access to some of the information, some of the materials they require, it really tends to kill and rather stunt interest, right? So we realize we need space clubs and we need to continuously engage these kids, right? So they need a platform and they need a space where they can learn more about space science and technology very comfortably, and they get to engage with a lot of different players within the space sector. So these are just some of the schools where we've established space clubs and currently running operations in. So the format usually varies. We do it sometimes on a weekly to bi-weekly basis, and each week we cover a different topic. So it gets progressive. So the curriculum that we designed for our space clubs, it gets progressively more difficult as time passes. So kids deal with much simpler topics, the history of space science and technology. They deal with celestial bodies. They learn about different kinds of spacecraft. And then later on, you get to much more complex topics, such as the classification of stars, how we classify planets, right? They get into some of the mathematical equations involved in determining the position of celestial objects. So this is sort of what we include within the curriculum, and it gives kids real insight into what's going on within the space sector and how they can get more involved as well. And as part of this, right, we also work closely with government organizations. So we work with NASA, the Nigerian Space Research Development Agency. We work with EXA, the Egyptian Space Agency, and ZINSA, Zimbabwe's own space agency as well. We currently have standing MOUs and agreements with these organizations. We also collaborated with Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, so NIGECOMSAT, and we were recently invited for their accelerator program during the Nigerian Satellite Week. Right. So the winners from our 2024 World Space Week event, they got to meet with the current managing director of NIGECOMSAT, and they got to engage and make a few presentations alongside the various other companies that were present during the Nigerian Satellite Week. So this pretty much sums up the majority of what the foundation has been doing since 2018. Moving forward, we plan to establish ourselves a lot more online. We're also in talks with a variety of organizations to see whether we can expand our operations to a lot more African countries moving forward. All right. So I think that's all from me. All right. Back to you, Danny.
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for that brilliant presentation, and just seeing the growth for the past 4 years or 5 years, ever since you kind of like re-established from the Nigerian Space Ambassadors to the ASF as well. So great work so far. Thank you so much. I also I have questions, but then again, I'll keep them when we have the Q&A. And please, if you have any question and you don't want to forget your question, feel free to send your question to the chat box. And then after the last presentation, we can read questions. We can have a very interactive session. Thank you so much again, Daniel. And over to Spacebar Africa, Daniel. I don't know if you're ready, Daniel, Spacebar Africa. Daniel, can you hear us? Okay, just going to... Daniel, can you hear us? Daniel, Spacebar Africa, to be specific. Okay.
Sorry, are you there?
Yes. Yes.
So I was trying to find yeah. So let me share my screen. So great presentation from Daniel and Ernest. Share my screen now. Let me just share my entire screen. So my name is Daniel from Spacebar Africa, and when we started Spacebar Africa, this was the issue that made us start Spacebar Africa. I, Shegun, and Emma. So I've always loved space. I won't tell you how I got tuned into space and how I got locked in because of the limited time I have, and I don't want to bore you. But there came this particular day whereby we needed to I needed to get a telescope. I needed to get a telescope, and I found out that I couldn't get a telescope here in Nigeria. I couldn't get a telescope. I couldn't rent. I couldn't buy. When I bought a telescope, was a fake telescope, right? It was a very fake telescope. So I was like, okay. Aside from the fact that I've always loved space and I have other people who love space, we can't access telescopes, and telescopes are the gateway to. Oh, sorry, my camera is not on. 1 second, please.
Yeah, we can't see you. I thought that was intentional, but yeah. And if you could pinch out a little bit on your presentation, Daniel, so that we can get a better view, just to zoom out so that we can see.
Okay, I should zoom out.
Yeah, to make it to be on the slideshow somewhere there. I think yes. Yeah, perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I share my video as well.
Yes.
So So there was no space community that would come together to use telescopes. And there wasn't a way we could get very good telescopes. So we said, see, I think it's time for a community that comes together to look through telescopes and, of course, make telescopes accessible. And one of the basic tenets of Spacebar is to ensure that people can look through a telescope. Nigerians, Africans, look through a telescope once in their lifetime. And we started. So the problem was that, and we found more problems along the way, that it's not even about looking into telescope. A lot of people are very fascinated about space. They see the shooting stars, they see the moon follow them, and they don't have very good knowledge about space. So these are the problems that Spacebar set out to solve. So Spacebar is a project that wants to give people access to observe space through telescopes. We also have a roadmap to have an overnight stargazing studio. We also want to set up STEM clubs, which we call space clubs in schools, to give people access to virtual and physical libraries dedicated to space and astronomy. We're also working on fabricating telescopes here in Nigeria. We just finished like 3D modeling of the telescope. Like we finished a 3D modeling and we just finished the printing of the very first one. Very terrible, I tell you. I can't even share it on this, but the design is very nice and it looked great when executed. Moving to the next slide. So when Spacebar launches, this is basically the revenue model, telescope access, telescope sales. We created a zero gravity room, give access to satellite imagery, and VR cubicles. Would also have a co-working hub. These are the co-founders of Spacebar, I, Shegun, and Ima. And I think some of you might have felt like, hey, this guy's about to just load us up with theories compared to Daniel and my and the first speaker from Ghana. We've got pictures. So I'll share the pictures right up. So these are events we've had in the past. This year we had Over the Moon, which was a space-themed event for lovers. And wait 1 second. I hope I'm not blocking my presentation. I don't know if let me just bring myself down here. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see your screen clearly.
Yeah, so when this eclipse happened, there was a partial eclipse that happened as well. We had a stargazing event regarding towards that as well. This picture was taken about midnight, the one here with Omon. And this was taken by KU. This one was taken by KU. And this was the house of one of the. This was we're tracking the moon like in real time, and we're also looking at it outside. So this was Space Roast, like our first physical event that we held at 4 Point. I think I'm really excited at the way looking at this picture, like very up close now. I love the way the sky looks very bright. Wow, it's actually very, very dark on those nights. So, we had very good view at Space Roast as well. So what we basically do at Spacebar when we have our events is that we make it look like a normal hangout. We don't make it look like a very nerdy hangout. So this was when we visited. This was when I visited Al Sidim Observatory in United Arab Emirates because they had an observatory located in a place that had very little light pollution. So I wanted to see how they operated, how they worked, and I was able to use a robotic telescope there as well, which we would be acquiring in Spacebar one of these days. So aside from having physical events at Spacebar, amidst all those things we want to do in future as well, aside from having physical events, we also have virtual events where we get to invite experts, folks that have worked at NASA, folks that have worked at different space-focused stuff. So we host this thing called Rabbit Hole. So Rabbit Hole is not even about meeting people. Rabbit Hole is a unhinged event where we come together physically and of course virtually to look into space softwares. We look into space publications.
We look into space tools, space apps. We look into publications, readings, blogs, and all of that. We just, let me show you the landing page for Spacebar. For Rabbito, rather, for Rabbito. So it's a, yeah, so it's a place we come to just extract ideas. We just want to find new ideas because we know that by reading and going through what other people have done, like other people have published, you know, we'll be able to find new ideas. So it's a vibrant community of astro enthusiasts where we delve into collections, resources, artworks, and a couple of all those things. So just to keep the whole Spacebar vision running. So that's what we do at Spacebar. So there's still a lot. We're still at day one when it comes to Spacebar. Spacebar recently got into NICOMSAT Accelerator. Wait, I think, let me see if I could share with you so far. 1 second. So far. Yeah, this is not a slide now, but this is basically like a log of what we've done like this month. We also organized NASA Space Apps in Lagos this year. We also had a lot of things to do at the NICOMSAT Accelerator, you know, and we also have different projects coming up. You know, we have different projects coming up. We even launched a game at Spacebar. Like Spacebar, I can't give you the whole gist on what Spacebar is. You know, we launched a game called Tiles at Spacebar as well. And I think you all should go play Tiles because it's kind of like very exciting and annoying game. So Spacebar is a lot, basically. But everything that Spacebar is just to give people more, give people this personalized space for people. Like make people know that you don't have to be Elon Musk to, you know, be a space enthusiast. You can be, you can do the little you do, you know, in your little space, maybe artworks or whatever it is, and you'd still be able to, you know, you'll still be able to be included in space and everything about it. Oh, so I think I won. Yes, I won. So thank you for presenting me at playing Space Styles.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Daniel. How interesting. Like I know about the rabbit holes and the telescopes, but not about the space styles, for instance. And
yeah, and you know that things that Spacebar is involved with that I didn't see on this call as well.
Yeah, yeah. So it seems you guys have this wide spectrum in terms of the tools you guys use for your outreach programs, and not just telescope, which is quite interesting. And everybody, please, I think Spacebar, it's kind of like open source. Someone can join.
Exactly, you can join and you can build your own stuff at Spacebar, and everybody's going to be at your back. Right?
Okay, great. I think
bring up an idea and everybody's going to run behind it at Spacebar.
Yeah, definitely. I think for all the NPOs present, maybe we could have let's have one more round of discussion, but just tell us how. I think we'll just go back to Ernest and then come back to you, Daniel. So Daniel, African Space Foundation, then you again. Can you tell us how people can get involved before we talk about any other thing? Because that's a very important part of the conversation. So we'll just start with you, Ernest. If someone wants to wants to support or wants to volunteer for the African Space Station project, or just get involved with maybe virtual or remote volunteering, how can they go about this?
Right. Thank you very much. For the African Space Station project, you can join through the website. And so when you go on Google and you type African Space Station project, it takes you to the page where you have to register. And then when you register, it takes you to a tutorial video. And after you watch that tutorial video, you are good to go. And so you begin the lessons from week 1 to week 10. But one thing that I didn't say is we have a structure for it. And so the phase 1 of the project has to do with, we are learning basics of space and satellite and ground ground station operation, how to receive signals from satellites. And so the schools end up designing an electronic system where they can receive some basic signals from satellites in space. So that's what the schools around Africa are doing currently. In the phase 2 is rocket design. And so we are about mounting a whole course on rocket design.
Okay.
Yes, so that is we have the third phase, but for now, let me talk about the first two phases because of time. Yeah,
it's okay. So that is like if a school wants to get involved, but are you people also taking volunteers maybe to join your team?
Yes, that's very great. We have what people that we call the national coordinators, and for the different countries. And so that's why earlier I said that it's quite challenging to get some person from a certain country. Yes. So example, from Nigeria like this, we have the Intercontinental School on this project. We have the Franege School, the Kano. There's a school in Kano that is on this. And so as soon as we are able to get somebody in that country, it becomes easier. And so we are open to national coordinators who are going to help us to reach schools in their countries.
Wow, absolutely. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ernest. And Daniel, for Africa Space Foundation, how does it work in terms of like your volunteers if people want to get involved?
Okay, so normally that would usually be done through our website, but we're currently revamping it and working on it in anticipation for 2025. So if you want to get involved or you want to volunteer for any of our projects, just send us a message on LinkedIn, and our team will get back to you.
Wow.
All right. I think I'll just post if
you can put that on the chat as well. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Daniel, how about for Space Bar Africa? How does it work?
Yeah, so Space Bar Africa, right? There are two ways to join Space Bar Africa. Number one, spacebar.africa. You could just sign into the mailing list. Spacebar.africa. You can sign into the mailing list. If you are the type that has a lot of things doing, you don't want to be close to people. We understand that everybody has different personalities. You want to be close to people, you just want to be on mailing list. That's what. So number two, we've got a WhatsApp group as well. So when we send a mail to the mailing list, we usually ask people to join the WhatsApp group. So but we only send the WhatsApp because of privacy and people going around to scam people and just like, hey, can I have some service today? So we just keep the WhatsApp group private a bit. But SpaceBar is very open. When you get through the WhatsApp group, just follow us on Twitter, join the mailing list, and somehow you could actually WhatsApp group link via the DM as well. So, but Spacebar Africa is very open, very, very open. The only thing that is not just open is WhatsApp group link, but it's very open. I think everyone at Spacebar is having a good time. I think
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm going to keep the floor open now. And we've heard about this really amazing non-profit work going on in the African space industry or space sector, and the outputs are incredible. Like the outputs are incredible, reaching hundreds of students. And I think even African Space Foundation go as fast, maybe primary school as well. And if you have any questions about this, maybe any of the specific MPOs, or you have a question about the broader non-profit sector in Africa, please feel free to raise your hands. Feel free to there's already a question. Okay, feel free to raise your hands. Feel free to send your question as a chat. Let's have a very lively conversations. I have some questions on my end here, but we are going to prioritize your questions. So I'll quickly start with Tando, and then we'll go to Atim to ask his questions. So Tando is asking, how do you make revenue to sustain operations and expand impact? Absolutely. I think I'll also have that question, especially for Ernest. Ernest, I don't know if you would like to take that question, because you're doing large scale work, reaching thousands of students. How do you make revenue to sustain operations and expand impact? Since you're a non-profit, how do you actually get the money to fund all of this?
All right, so thank you.
Sorry, Ernest, we're having a small feedback. If you could read it. Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, so for All Nations University, first of all, it's a private university that has taken upon itself to spearhead space activities.
Okay.
And that is the facility that we have here. We have a very large, we have a very huge laboratory which has all these experiments over here. And it was solely funded by the university itself.
Okay.
Now, for the students who come to our premises, they pay. They pay not as they go to any other, like other person will charge, but then they pay, and the payment is to sustain the facility.
Okay.
Now, the African Space Station project for the phase 1 is totally free to access.
Okay.
It's free to access. And so we have taken the burden to generate the online content. If you should visit the online content, you see so many animations, right, that has to do with space science and exploration. We are explaining almost everything with graphics and animations. And that's what a team sat down to do.
Okay.
For the phase 2, we are going to have the schools to pay for the phase 2. But let me say that the project is open to those like people who support. Apart from charging, there are those who hear about the vision and they are like, wow, I want to be part of this. And so they support. And with the support, sometimes you can have very little support and very large support. The only private institution in Ghana has taken upon itself to do this, and that's what we've been doing. So for the phase 2 of the African Space Station project, that's the rocket design. Before they log into it, the school is going to be charged. It's a one-time payment, and then that can be sustained, and the project can be expanded from that. But the phase 1 is absolutely free because all that we need is 1 million people.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you so much.
I hope the 1 million people you are getting, I hope I'll be part of them.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah. Before we go quickly to Atim's question, I don't know if Daniel from Africa Space Foundation, you want to also chip in. How do you actually get, the funding for your projects as well? All these primary schools and secondary schools, and your volunteers as well. Do you give them some incentives, or is it totally free? How exactly does it work your end?
Okay, so all the funding that the foundation, everything that we use to run programs throughout the year, right? It's all from sponsors, all from donations, every last bit of it. So we usually get sponsors. It can sometimes government organizations, sometimes private companies. It can even be individuals as well that usually give us funding for certain projects. We do not charge school for any of our programs. So if we establish a space club in a school today, we do not charge that school. So students can join the club for free. So we don't charge schools at all for any of that. Only schools that we have specialized agreements with, where they agree that, okay, they want to sponsor us, we do receive funding from. But every other school, no. This is mainly because we work with a lot of government primary and secondary schools, and we don't want any barriers to entry in regards to our engagement with students. As for volunteers are unpaid. They do it only because they wish to. The foundation does have full-time staff in the office every single day that are paid, but volunteers
Okay,
are
okay,
not
yeah.
paid. Yes.
Yeah, I think I understand. So you have your staff, of course, you have to pay your staff, and then you
Yes.
have volunteers who, yeah. Okay, interesting. Wow. Thank you, Daniel. And how about for Space by Africa? It seems like a community of, big time nerds. How do you guys go about it, Daniel?
Yeah, so how do we go about what? Let me start very
Funding,
precise.
just the telescope, everything. Do you guys, get donations? Is it from personal funds? How does it work your end?
Yeah, so community is very fun to build with because first of all, you have to lead by example. I fund a lot of these myself, but we have a telescope that got donated to us by Al Saddam Observatory there in United Arab Emirates. We have one telescope donated. We have two other telescopes which were bought by Spacebar. Whenever we have events, we ensure that many times we don't charge for most of our events. The only thing we are kind of charging for probably when we do ticketing, it's just for the food.
For the food,
Just for the food, and so we can cover a few logistics and all of that. Maybe materials at the event and all of that. So we've not been able to break into the funding stage because it's astronomy and all of that. And here in Nigeria, how many government agencies want to really support you? But we are trying to do much of show what we are doing, right? Show what we are doing and reach out for funding. But we are more of, I think we've been able to do what Elon Musk wants to do, which is cut a lot of funding. So we don't really see, we will still need funding in the future, but we also want to ensure that we get it from the right person, so that we don't become, I'm not saying collecting money from certain people is bad, but we also need to ensure that it doesn't curb the dream and vision of what we want to do. It doesn't limit what the advocacy we do. We want to be able to call the hells of who when it's needed to be called. So basically, right now Spacebar funds a lot of these things. We've only had a donation from our Sadim Moshabechi. And sometimes, some community members be like, oh, I want to cover for that drink, I want to cover for that. And all of that. Just not just the way bars work.
Community approach, yes. I think
the way bars work, people just like, hey, I want to pay for that, that out of flex. But sometimes, the bars last fights, cops and everything and all the equipment, and let people just come in and do their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Daddy. Apparently different ways of funding, and it also reflects on the different structure. I think every NPOA has a very, very different structure, and so the ways of getting funds is also really different, and how it's sustained is different. I hope that answers your question, Tando. Please, if anybody has any other question, please feel free to put your question on the chat or just raise your hand. Thank you. And over to 18 of you, please. 18, please. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Nelly, and a big thank you to sorry, the name just skipped my mind now. Space Ops Africa. Sorry, I don't know why it skipped my mind for this initiative. I'm involved in a very, very young non-profit. So I'm here just to hear and to learn. The non-profit just about 2 years. So you can imagine that we still have a very long way to go. I'll just put out the thoughts or the questions, and then because I'm not sure I may have opportunity of talking again. And the first one is to Spacebar. My first question is Spacebar, is it just focused on Nigeria, or your scope it's Africa? And then there's another organization called Traveling Telescope. I don't know that you know about Traveling Telescope, which I think is majorly in Kenya. I don't know that they have activities outside Kenya. Do you do anything with them? Do you collaborate with them? Since what they are doing, it's kind of similar to what you're doing. And then another question, this one is directed to Spacebar and the Africa Space Foundation. that has to do, that has to do with the idea of setting up space clubs. I'm not sure whether Ernest talked about that because I missed the early part of his talk. But I mean, everybody wants to set up space clubs in different schools, different communities. And I'm wondering why that proliferation. Space club is space club. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you, I mean, if I'm in a primary school or a secondary school, am I going to join two space clubs? So I just want to understand how you differentiate yourselves, or whether you guys can think of coming together to synergize when it comes to schools outreach. Sorry, like I said, I just want to put out the thoughts and the questions. And then the other one has to do with like if you look at the theme on the flyer, yeah, I've not seen you guys talk about your challenges or your setbacks and how you tackle that. I think it's one of the themes, and it's one of the reasons why I'm here too, to actually know what are the challenges you faced, because I believe you're facing different kinds of challenges, and how do you tackle them?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, A-Team. I think that's there's lots to unpack there. So I don't know if
from Spacebar, Daniel is removed.
Yeah.
If the other organization, NS, is not there, will your organization continue to run, or everything is just on you? So those are the things I'm just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So, firstly, you asked if we do programs with Traveling Telescope. Yeah. So the thing with Traveling Telescope is that they're a great organization, and they cover the Nairobi area, and they are very much older than we are, and they've got a lot of equipment, lot of mobile observation, observatory, and a lot of all of that. We have not done anything together, and it's not out of spite, it's not out of non-collaboration. But when it comes to African, African projects doing things together, the major barrier is always just the distance and avenue to meet. For example, I've met with Daniel here, I've met with Ernest here, bro. After this call, I'm going to reach out to them. You could see me in Ghana tomorrow, and I'm learning about their rocket design program. That's how it works. If you don't get avenues to meet people, then reaching out is actually reaching out is very problematic, because you already have a lot of problems in front of you. So it's as your problems take you to people that you now get to meet people. If you've not had the problem that now makes you need to meet people, you might not need them, and it's not because you are not willing to collaborate on anything. So secondly, when it comes to the Space Clubs program, we don't even do Space Clubs program at the moment. We've tried to recruit for Space Clubs program. However, we want to design a Space Club program that is very that is very nice. I don't want to use a very crazy word, but that is very nice. That is hands-on, and people would always remember. And when it comes to every other person having space clubs, I think it's not, there aren't enough space clubs, actually. There aren't enough space clubs. And I'll tell you that even many schools are not receptive to space clubs, because one of the reasons why Space Bar has delayed their space clubs program, and we are like, when we start, and we have a very heavy program coming, is because many schools, especially private schools, many of them are focused, they can be very myopic. They're always like, what's neat for them? Because I've run something before this, and it was even more like even more. It was more connected people than this. And I saw a lot of schools saying, I think you're scam. I think no. I've done something before that I even had these schools making money, and only a few of them, really bought into the idea. So I know a thing or two about setting up things in schools. And I tell you that we need like 100 space clubs, like we need 100 space groups trying to do space clubs for us to have like 10% penetration. So we need a lot of it. It's just like Red Cross now. Like you have a lot of Red Cross organization and Red Cross chapters all over the world. And you don't ask how many of these schools have now adopted Red Cross or even Boy Scouts. So it's never enough. You know, it's when we now start having 2 space clubs in the same school, we now start having problems. And many schools will just tell you that, oh, sorry, we don't have, we already have a space club already working. When it comes to Space Bar being about Nigeria alone, the reason why we're in Nigeria alone at this time is because we want to learn the ropes here from Nigeria. We have opening, I'd say we have opening for country directors, you know, country directors who would sit, who we would sit with and show them this same playbook, you know, this same playbook that we've done here in Nigeria. You understand? This same playbook that we've done here in Nigeria, we now pass it to them and say, play this in your country, play this in your country. And I'm actually seeing it happening also in Ireland, you know, in Dublin. We're having something close to that. We're having something close to where the Northern Stars are being viewed, because one of the experiences I want to bring to Space Bar members is the Northern Lights, the Aurora, the Southern Lights, and the Northern Lights. So we're trying to even, apart from even Africa, we're trying to move to those countries that have those Northern Lights so that we could see how the community would first establish there. They would establish a community there, you know, of course, Nigerians and other people, like people from all over the world. In fact, you might not even have Nigerians and Africans in those clubs, but the goodwill of that community can now create an avenue for invitations to be sent to people here in Africa to now say, come and experience this. You understand? So it's easier for you to, it's easier for, let me say, you to have a United Nations group or let me say Red Cross or a Boy Scout group in London, you know, then they will now say, hey, the guys in Kenya, the guys in Togo, oh yeah, come. You understand? It's easier for that to happen than for you to stay here in Africa. You can drum and do all the telescope, whatever you want to do, but your members won't be able to see that experience. So one of the reasons we are even trying to now show our playbook to people in the global north and also in the rest of Africa is so that we can now start having a lot of cultural exchanges and many inter-country experiences. So if you're on the call and you want to, and you think you can do, you think you're excited about Space Bar and you want to like start the Space Bar community in your country, please, you could just go to Space Bar Africa, and I think there's a mail somewhere there or somewhere right there, or maybe on Twitter, like Nelly said, we are big on Twitter, and you could just DM and get talking. But we always want to ensure that whatever we are doing, whether it is space clubs, whether it is expanding to other countries, whether it is partnering with anybody, we always want to ensure that it is well done and doesn't die, because things die in space, you know.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that extensive
I would like to
answer. Yes. Okay. Yes,
I would like to
Daniel.
make a comment concerning one of the challenges that Daniel just spoke about and how we have managed to have our way around it. He spoke about, you know, the schools.
Yeah.
Some of the schools do not want to accept the space concept because it's too much of a fiction to a lot of them. It's too far-fetched for a lot of them. Now,
Truly,
we have managed to, at a large extent, overcome that. But let me show how. It's basic in marketing that we sell the benefits and not the features. And so if I go to a high school and I say that I have this space activity, you are going to learn about that, you are going to, and I keep speaking from my perspective, I notice that a lot of the headmasters or the proprietors, they are not interested. So I change it. I begin to talk to them about the benefits that the students will have.
Okay.
And so this is the approach that I took.
Okay.
I first look at their curriculum, the curriculum that the students have. Okay, so your students learn about electromagnetic waves. Do they have any practical facility to practice electromagnetic waves?
Okay.
They don't. And in this, my activity, it gives them a practical platform to practice that. And so the guy wants to do it. And for what we have, you know, our project is, we are doing it together with the Ghana Education Service, because it is, the African Space Station project is currently a standard extracurriculum activity in Ghana.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yes, so the minister of the director of the Ghana Education Service and the Minister of Education has actually adopted this as a standard curriculum activity. How? Because we took their curriculum and then we related the content in their curriculum with what we have. And so it's no more sounding space, which an average person will run from, but it's more connecting. And then the second thing that we did was that we used the approach of them having a certificate. All right. And so we have a certificate that I'm showing it on the screen right now. Any student who participates in this project and you pass your exam, it says that this student is getting this certificate, which shows that he or she has some basic knowledge in space education. And they are like, wow, they want to have it. And so when I say that we want to reach 1 million students, what I'm thinking about is that 1 million students are going to have this certificate that they can show somewhere that they have basic knowledge in space science. And so that's what we are doing. This certificate is automated on the website. As soon as you take your exams, you are going to receive it. And so I think we can go by that approach so that we don't sell the features, but we sell the benefit to them. Thank you.
This is just, it's really spot on in talking about the challenges of schools. And thanks Etim for bringing that conversation to the forefront earlier on about schools. And Ernest just gave us a strategy, because yes, you would think that schools would be excited. The students are excited, but sometimes schools can be a big challenge. And this insight here is just really great. I don't know, Daniel from African Space Foundation, Ernest just talked about curriculum, and I know you've also mentioned curriculum. How would it be to, get Nigeria to also adopt something similar, to have like a standard curriculum for space? That way just makes life easier for most of the MPOs that are interested in space and schools.
Yes, it's definitely something that we're working towards. So the foundation currently has authorization from UBEP, the Universal Basic Education Board, for educators to establish a space club in every single public school in the FCT. So we have authorization for that. So we actually already have a curriculum that we utilize for this. So it's not a problem. So schools have never really been a challenge for us, because all we just need to do is show them our letter, show them that we have authorization, and they let us in. But it definitely needs something a bit more comprehensive. It's actually a project, I didn't mention it in the earlier slide, but it's actually something that we've been looking for towards 2025. The foundation will partner with a few other professionals, a few other organizations and non-profits as well. And we want to look at constructing a much more comprehensive curriculum, not just for primary and secondary school, but also up to the university level as well. So I suppose maybe after the meeting, I'll contact Ernest and Daniel about that as well.
Yeah, and not just Ernest and Daniel. To be fair, there are several MPOs operating, everywhere. It's just hard to get people together, like Daniel mentioned, sometimes about getting people together. So I'm also part of Learn Space Foundation, and we do school like stuff with schools sometimes, and especially with public schools, it can be a challenge. So apart from maybe the organizations on the call, I do concede, someone has mentioned on the group, we need a synergy in terms of like people that do outreach to schools, like so that it makes it easier. For example, if the UBEP authorization, for example, is something that all MPOs can have in Nigeria, it just makes it easier. And I wouldn't know about this UBEP authorization if we didn't have this call right now. So thank you for mentioning UBEP. And I see a hand up. And David, before we take your question, because we have to start rounding up quite soon. But before we take your question, let me just quickly see some of the conversations on the group. Okay, on space clubs in Nigeria. Yes, there are space clubs, but those space clubs are tertiary, like you mentioned. So just for the benefit of those on the call, Nigerian universities offering space related courses have space clubs. Space clubs OAU, Space Club FUTA, Space Club Lagos State University. I think UNN has a space club as well. And then some schools don't have space clubs, but they have space law clubs, something like that. But I think in the context of what we are discussing, we are looking largely at space clubs for secondary schools and primary schools as well. But David, if you can go ahead, I don't know if you have a contribution or a question, please feel free. Okay.
I wanted to add that I believe that if we are looking towards establishing space clubs in secondary schools or maybe in schools at all, though, I think we could actually have a conversation with the space club leaders of the federal institutions. Like what I'm trying to say is there's actually a community that was created, right, with
Yeah.
the aim of like should I say merging all space clubs into one, right? So it's now Space
At
Clubs
the,
Nigeria.
sorry, like at the tertiary level, right? At the tertiary level, you guys are thinking of merging into one.
Yeah, so at the tertiary level, so it's like all of us are one voice. You get.
Okay.
So the idea is because we know that there are students within the institutions that they want to do stuff, right? We want to get projects done. We want our voices to be heard. Yeah. So and one of those ways in which you can make our voices being heard is by coming together to be one body. So for example, now we're looking at it like, okay, what if some students have academic projects and they think that those projects can be of benefit to the Nigerian economy, and also it can actually foster our, how do I put it, our ambitions for space related solutions, academic projects and all. So what can we do? How can we get funding and all of that? So that was why the idea of coming together as one body, one voice just came. So I believe it would be a great step, like if you're actually looking towards having space clubs, right?
Okay.
Starting space.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it's great in the sense that it's great that you guys are here and you guys have a pool of undergrads scattered across Nigeria. So if you guys also want to also maybe partner or work or volunteer with the African Space Station projects, the Space by Africa and ASF as well, I think that's really incredible. So thank you for your contribution on that and just letting us know about the university part of the conversation. So 18's hand is up again. 18, please.
Yes, thank you once again for the opportunity. And again, thanks to Space Hubs Africa for this convening this discussion. And maybe just to also say that it would be nice to have this conversation beyond here. You see, the MPOs have a lot more power, not just beyond outreach, beyond setting up space clubs. If you go to Ethiopia, their space program was started off by an MPO, the Ethiopian Space Science Society. And that's what actually eventually led to the government getting interested in space. And now you have the Ethiopian Space Science and Geospatial Institute. The same thing is happening in Tunisia. Some people came together, formed the Tunisia Space Association, and now they are pushing for the establishment of the Tunisia Space Agency and getting the industry together. So MPOs have power that can be leveraged on to promote space programs at the national level and at the continental level. So I want to propose to Space Hubs Africa, if you can think of, I don't know how to call it, a meeting, a colloquium, a conference, or whatever, bringing MPOs, well, maybe for a more, a term that people have associated more, the civil society. So
civil society, that's true.
So space organizations that are within the civil society in quote sector, finding a means to bring them together, maybe in a conference, in a workshop or something, to speak. You know, we have so many meetings that are related to industry. There are many things that space agencies had to come together.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's any particular meeting where organizations within the civil society group come together to talk. So if Africa can champion that, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the suggestion. That's a really great one. That's one of the reasons why we actually hosted this dialogue, because we know that every day we talk about industry, we talk with the government, everybody keeps having conversations, but we've not really had a lot of engagement with civil society. And from the conversations today, we can see that they're actually doing a lot of incredible work, and it also contributes to the entire African ecosystem, which we are very interested in from Space Hubs Africa. So thank you for just pointing that out. So we have about 10 minutes to go, and I still have some questions here, but I just want to ask all the panelists, just as we round up, if every one of them can give us their opinion, especially just circling back to the theme of today's topic, which is, you know, strides, challenges, and the future. So my question is that, what do you think is the current status of nonprofits or CSOs, as Etim has brilliantly introduced that term, the current status of nonprofits in the African space sector? What do you think about it generally, as someone spearheading and working in nonprofit yourself? And then what mechanisms do you think we can use to like improve their impact as a whole in the African space economy? So I don't know, would we start with Ernest again? What do you think is the current status of like nonprofits in the African space economy, and what mechanism would you believe that we can use to improve their impact?
All right, so I would like to talk about the what we can do to improve, because from my perspective, the status is country bias, country perspective. But then let me talk about what can be done to improve. And so in every country, we have the government agency, and like we have NASDA for Nigeria, and then Ghana Space Science Institute for Ghana. I think that the government institutions should look forward to adopting what the nonprofit is doing, all right, to extend their program. Sometimes it is taken on the note of conflict of interest, because NASDA thinks that what ASF is doing, they are crossing boundaries into what they should be doing, what Spacebar is doing, they are crossing boundaries into what they are doing. But then I think that they should rather look at it as an asset to expand what they want to do. And so I think that that's one of the ways to go with this, though, you know, theoretically, they will say that, yes, we support you and all that, but they should be able to also support with some funds. And so if anyone rises as an advocate for space, and then they are able to look through the person's programs, and they think that, yes, it's truly space and is going to help, why not? They should allocate some funds for non-governmental people, so to put it, to support their work. And I think that if that is done for a lot of the NPOCs, is really going to create a very huge impact, and also motivate others to come up with other diverse space activities. Because what I am doing is different from what Daniel, the space bar, is doing, is different from what ASF is, but it's all space. And I can say that what we are doing in combination is all space, right? So there are other things that space involves, or it's included in space, which others can take up. So that approach, I think, will really help.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, because absolutely, I think the government has a role to play in just promoting NPOs and their work, and, you know, supporting them, because sometimes we can think that government agencies can do it all, but that is not possible. And I think I love how you mentioned earlier that you target rural areas, and I think Daniel from ASF also mentioned how they target public institutions and public schools as well, because in as much as a space agency set up, they have a very broader, big ambition, and they are catering for the entire, national space policy and strategies. NPOs get to work on the ground with schools, and just that support is something I believe that David said even NASA cannot do it all. Absolutely, like they're like organizations in America, like the Space Foundation, that really push forward, civil society activities for space, even in America. So thanks for bringing that perspective and your contributions so far on the conversation. Thank you, Ernest. And Daniel, Africa Space Foundation.
Okay, all right. So, okay, first of all, I really resonate with what Ernest said about, space agencies feeling like a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
It's something that I've experienced the past few years. They feel like there's this, I don't know how to describe it, it's just sort of feeling you get. They sort of give off the impression that they don't want you in their space. That
Yeah,
this
actually.
is a government agency, you shouldn't get involved. But at the end of the day, it's collaboration that got us here. The Africa Space Foundation would not be what it is today if we didn't partner with different organizations, if we weren't open to new ideas and willing to work with different people.
Mm.
And I think that's the way forward for the African space sector. The reality of it is that most African countries do not, well, some do have the funding, but some do not have the capacity to fully develop their own indigenous space programs and run it. Sometimes it might be due to conflict, it might be due to economic issues, and we need to understand the reality of what's happening on the continent. And this is where collaboration comes in. You need to be able to share resources, share information, right? We work with Zimbabwe Space Agency. One of the problems that they've had these past few years has been funding. They've also had issues with trying to reach people in very remote communities. It's in situations like that where they reach out to organizations, they reach out to ASF, and we can find ways to help them get funding. We can find ways to help them reach some of the most remote parts of the country. So it's all about sitting down and understanding at the end of the day that we are all African, and we all have a duty and a responsibility to each other to work together to solve some of the problems we're facing on the continent. So it's collaboration that gets us where we need to go. And I think that should be our focus moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Daniel. Collaboration is just, I think that has now become one of the key themes we are talking about, especially with space agencies. And thanks again to Ernest for bringing that up and you just reiterating that point, because it's quite an uncomfortable topic, but I have done some nonprofit as well with space agencies. And there are frictions most of the time. And maybe if we do get to have that dialogue that Eti mentioned in terms of synergy for CSOs, that dialogue should not happen independent of government agencies. We would probably need the government agencies so that we can also discuss about, collaborating in a way that it doesn't seem anyone is encroaching on anybody's responsibilities. And thanks for sharing your thoughts and all the wonderful work you are doing at African Space Foundation, Daniel. It's been very insightful today. Thank you so much. And finally, to hear from Daniel from Space by Africa, the question is, in your opinion, the current status of nonprofits in the African space sector, although Ernest has established that it's quite challenging to talk about that since it depends country to country, but what is your opinion on nonprofits in the African space sector, and what mechanisms do you believe could improve the impact of nonprofits in the African space sector from your experience as someone who works within that sector?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Nelly. And Daniel said well. I think I would make my answer more, I'll make my answer something that will be relevant to people that know in the space sector as well. And what I think it is when it comes to status of nonprofits in Africa is that we need to move out of the way of the things we need to see accomplished. We need to move away from our selfish interest. We need to put community first, the vision first. We need to make the community like the God. I'm not saying like, okay, and Africa is a very religious continent. So now that I'm saying make the community the God, now so people say this guy is bad.
No, but you need to make the community, you need to be obsessed about the community, because sometimes community can be so lit about something that you even forget that, oh, wow, you don't even have funding. I'm telling you. Yeah, like you don't forget that you don't even have funding. You even forget that you don't even have the government support. You know, you'd see people so lit about what you guys do. Like I want the space and NGOs to evolve. I'm not saying that this organization I'll call is like the benchmark, but I want every nonprofit that I'm part of, and I want all of us on this call to have this mind behind every nonprofit that we are part of, that let it be like the Red Cross, let it be like the Boys Brigade, let it be like let it be like the Boy Scout, let it be like the Lions Club, whereby people just see that they are headed this way. You understand? We sell the vision and let the community buy it. Our first customer is the community, not the fund guys, not the anything. You understand? I'd like everyone on this call, I'll give everyone a gift. Read Tribes by Seth Godin. Read Tribes by Seth Godin. There's another article that I'd love us to read, which is you only need let me see if I'll be able to get that. I'll send that link in the chat box. You only need one, like you only need 100 believers in everything you do. Because at the end of the day, you see, I don't know. A lot of people have different visions for whatever they are doing. Like they want to have a lot of funding, they want to be on Forbes list. Well, if that's what you want to have, I might not be the right person to listen to. If you want to have a community that outlives you, a community that if anything just happens to you right now, you just lose your mind, you understand, or you become out of state, this community is going to leave. Your grandchildren are going to accidentally find this community, and someone is going to say, oh, your dad found that. You need to be obsessed about the community. You need to put the vision first and let people roll with it, because nobody wants to. Who cares about me? Nobody wants to like roll into whatever I'm doing or whatever I am. I don't even have as much qualifications as a lot of people in my community. But if you can actually give them, so if you can actually make them see like a common paper, that looks like, I think I could have written that paper. Everybody at Facebook could have founded Facebook. Funny enough, that's a very interesting thing. And they could go on to continue Spacebar. Like many of the programs we now do, I try to like see how people take charge, and they are willingly taking the charge. I'm part of one particular community now. I just joined it. The guy is really frustrated because he thinks he's building a community for everybody, and he's the one doing everything full time. But he's like, he keeps wondering why people are not jumping on things. Like why he's telling people to do ordinary things like write an FAQ or write whatever, and people are not doing it. We have to be obsessed about our community as nonprofits. We have to be obsessed about the results. We have to be obsessed about seeing people buy the idea. There are different kinds of communities, but I'll say read Seth Godin's Tribes. Make the vision very easy. Be transparent to people. Let people see where you are headed. Let people see rejection that you got from a particular organization. Let people see what you want to do next week. Nobody's going to snatch your community from you, basically, right? But let people just see what you're up to. Let people see what the minister or whatever told you. You know, so yeah, it's fine if you want to keep it coded, but I just think everything is still centered around community. You know, if you want to really build something that would outlive you and really make great impact.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for speaking so passionately, Daniel. Thank you so much for speaking on behalf of the communities of people interested in nonprofit and the African space sector. I think we just can't take that part of passion away, especially if it's nonprofit. Then I think passion is a key part of it, and just working together with other people that think the same as you is very important. And thanks for just reminding all of us of that fact and being here today. So we have come and we are gradually coming to the end of today's dialogue session, which is the last for the year, actually. So this year has been incredible. We've had conversations from Pan-Africanism to space communication, and it's very interesting how some of the themes that we've discussed about are all interlinked in a way. But I think one thing that is certain is we are very interested in building an African space ecosystem. So I'm going to send a link right now to the chat box where you can see some of our insights online. You can also see a Google form where we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you'll be expecting from us next year, what kind of topics. We've already gotten a few ideas on topics, and most people just want something centered around young people, while some people want something more generic. But we've also had ideas like space law, GIS, but we also want to hear more from you. What topics and conversations should we run with for 2025? And I want to use this opportunity to thank all of you for coming for today's session, and for those that have always been joining throughout the year, thank you so much. And yes, if you have any question at all for the webinar session, if you want to partner with us, if you want to host a dialogue session with us, just send me an email, Nelly@SpaceOpsAfrica, and I'm just going to send that to the chat box now, Nelly@SpaceOps. Yeah, just send me an email and we'll be very, very glad to hear from you and to work with you as well. On behalf of Space Hubs Africa, I would like to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. Please follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter as well. Absolutely. Okay, Kweku is on the call. Our founder is on the call. Kweku Suma, if you want to say hello to everybody, if it's convenient. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Nelly. Thank you. Just a few words from my end. Great work, everybody. Great work, Nelly, as well, for hosting this. Thank you to all the speakers for sharing your insights. It's through discussions like this that I think we can build the Africa that we want, which is also why we wanted to host these monthly webinars, to try and coalesce the community, bring different people together from all across Africa to share insights, to share discussions, and to hopefully learn from each other and build with each other to create a stronger Africa. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Once again, thank you for the speakers. And of course, thank you to Nelly, our brilliant host, who has been hosting all these webinars on a monthly basis, organizing everything on a monthly basis. So we couldn't do this without her. And so I just wanted to share some more appreciation for her work. You can follow us, as Nelly said, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, also on YouTube, all Space Hubs Africa. All our webinars are posted on YouTube. So in case you missed some, you can go back and look through our different catalog of videos as well. We have insights on our websites. We have a lot of information out there. So feel free to follow us on all social media platforms, join the webinar, WhatsApp community, and generally just engage, right? The African space community includes all of you here, right? So if you want to have an active community, if you want to have a community that's moving forward, we need everybody to participate, to provide their ideas, and to support each other. So that's just the last few words I want to leave you all with. Thank you a lot for your time, and I'll hand it back over to Nelly to close the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kweku. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that last word with us as well. So we're actually done for the webinar, but then since it's the last webinar for the year, and of course, as our tradition most times, if you want to join us in a photo, please feel free to unmute yourself so that we can take a photo. If that would be so great. So I think we have Daniel already put on his video. Please put on your video so you can take a photo just for the end of the webinar. Thank you, Rita. Oh, hi, Tando. Yes, Tando, you need an award for most consistent member. That should be Dr. Lisa, though. Yeah, I think it should be Dr. Lisa. So you come in second place for most consistent member of the year.
Give him one Bitcoin,
almost
please.
everything webinar. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you for putting on your video, Sadia. It's good to see you. Okay, I don't think we'll be having any more. So yes, I'll take the photo from my end. Okay. Cheers. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful year in advance, year-end celebrations, Christmas and New Year, and I hope to see you all in January 2025. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you for the session.